everyone. It's 2:04, so we're going to get started for the sake of time. Welcome and thank you for being here today. The Boulder Chamber and Workforce Boulder County have teamed up to bring you the Pathways to Success webinar series. The goal of this series is to give young adults a greater perspective on what it's like to be a working professional in Colorado's top industries. During the panel, we'll have about 40 minutes of panelist discussion, and then we'll move into about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat throughout the panel, and we will get to them at the end. You may not see them right away because we are moderating our Q&A, but just feel free to drop them in the chat. And then as a reminder, this panel is being recorded and it will be available for viewing on the Chamber YouTube channel at a later date. And without further ado, we can go ahead and get started by introducing our panelists. On today's healthcare focus panel, we have Courtney Dregalla, Director of Clinical Partnerships at Embark Behavioral Health, Lauren Kunz, Clinical Education Program Director at Boulder Medical Center, and Casandra Richards, Senior Recruiter and Credentialing Coordinator at Boulder Medical Center. Let's go ahead and get started with introductions. So why don't the panelists tell us about yourself, your background, and what your educational and professional experience has been leading up to your current career. And we'll go ahead and start with Courtney.
Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Dregalla. I'm the Director of Clinical Partnerships at Embark Behavioral Health, as was just mentioned. I grew up in Arvada, Colorado, so I'm a native. I graduated from CSU with my undergrad in Business and Ethnic Studies. I also recently obtained my master's degree from UNC in business administration and with a focus in healthcare. So I've spent nearly a decade working in the behavioral health field at acute psychiatric hospitals, residential programs for eating disorders and mood and anxiety, as well as partial hospitalization programs and intensive outpatient programs for primary mental health. Prior to this, I managed multiple retail stores in Los Angeles and Phoenix. So thanks for having me join today.
Awesome. Thanks, Courtney. And we will go ahead and move over to Casandra.
Hi, everybody. I'm Casandra Richards. I'm the Senior Recruiter and Credentialing Coordinator for Boulder Medical Center. I also am a Colorado native. I grew up in Fort Lupton and I'm a Buffalo. So went to CU Boulder, studied communication with an emphasis in organizational communication. My background was working in IBM for several years. Then I moved on to chiropractic and eventually found my way into HR, which is my career of choice, working in healthcare for the past 12 years. So very excited. All of my tenure has been at Boulder Medical Center. And then as far as recent education that I've received, I've recently completed a recruitment leadership training, which will help me be more strategic and partnering with partners such as the Boulder Chamber. So excited to be here.
That's awesome. Leadership training is super exciting, and I feel like something not everybody gets the opportunity to do. So that's awesome. All right, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren, and I'm also working with Boulder Medical Center. I am actually not a Colorado native. I'm from Minnesota, so I like to think it's the next best thing. And I am a nurse. So I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing and have been working in education most recently.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. And apologies, I'm trying to figure out how to pin everybody as they're speaking, so give me a minute. All right. It's great to have such a variety of experiences that the panel brings us today. I would love to hear if the path to your career was what you expected it to be, and if not, what ways did the journey surprise you? And we can go ahead and we'll go backwards. So Lauren, you can start.
Sounds good. So the pathway to my career was absolutely not expected, which I think was a good thing. I started off knowing I wanted to go something into patient care, I started with a psych major, and then I realized I wanted a little more hands-on, and then went to nursing school. So I started off working as a nurse. I worked for a nurse as a nurse in a hospital. I worked as a nurse in Boulder Medical Center, which is an outpatient care clinic system. And I've worked as a CNA as well, a certified nursing assistant, in some group home settings and long-term care settings. And then eventually I found my way into education just because I ended up training a lot. You do a lot of training on the job in this industry. And I just absolutely loved it. And Boulder Medical Center happened to have an opportunity with an education position. So that's where I found myself.
Awesome. Lauren, I'd love you to share how you got your CNA certification and a little bit what that process was like, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So I got my CNA certification in Minnesota. It was before I'd graduated from nursing school, so something I was doing kind of part-time in school. So Minnesota has a certification exam where you can either go to a school to learn nursing assistant duties, or you can take an exam and kind of test out of it. I chose to take a course through my community college, and they were really helpful in identifying some basic medical information, which was really helpful. They prepare you for the exam, and they kind of really help you take that test and become successful. So I just kind of looked to my local community college.
Awesome. Thank you. We will bring it over to Casandra.
So my pathway to becoming an HR professional wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do originally. I really thought I was going to be a marketing executive. And after working for a couple of years post-graduation and starting to realize that I really enjoyed working with people, I networked at the local chapter called Dara. It's Boulder Area Human Resources Association. From there, I was able to network with some ladies who were able to get me connected with the HR manager at Boulder Medical Center. And that's how I got lifted into a human resources position as an assistant first. There, I quickly found that I do have a love for recruitment because it really brings together that piece of marketing. You get to be a mover and shaker to help people find their niche, find out what they enjoy, what their jam is as far as like their skills that they're really good at. So that was something that kind of surprised me. I really thought I could only go in marketing one direction, but I found out I could mix my love of people and trying to make things sparkly in human resources. So I was excited to find that, and I've been very successful at it with Boulder Medical Center.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we'll pass it over to Courtney.
Yeah, so like my two other colleagues here, my career path was also anything but linear. After graduating from undergrad, I was very uncertain about what I wanted to do. So I took a retail position at the Buckle, which, for the jeans, you might be familiar with them. I was hoping for the discount. Again, didn't know what I wanted to do, but before I knew it, I was fast-tracked through their leadership training and eventually offered a position to manage their flagship store out in Phoenix. I later transitioned to a retailer called White House Black Market and ran multiple stores out in Los Angeles. After several years, I realized I was in retail and I wasn't sure why. It was never a passion. I just kind of got swept away. So reflected on my career, decided I wanted to make a big change, returned back to Colorado. I joined a startup company in the sleep disorder breathing space as their practice manager, and during a marketing initiative for the clinic, I met the director of a behavioral health facility who encouraged me to explore a career path in healthcare. So I met him for lunch about a week later to discuss opportunities and everything that he was kind of referring to as far as the interdepartment. And I decided to take a leap into healthcare and in turn began my journey with behavioral health as a business development liaison for an acute psychiatric hospital. And I have been in the industry ever since.
That's awesome. Can you talk about your transition from retail to startup? Did you take a break in between? Was it like a fast transition? What did that feel like and look like for you?
It was a quick transition. Like I said, as soon as I had my mind made up that I was not on the path that I had ever anticipated or had a passion for, as soon as I moved back, it was kind of like I was on LinkedIn, what's local, what's available. And I knew, based on my experience, kind of what set of skills I had. So a lot of soft skills, a lot of communication, a lot of problem solving, just being very intuitive about my surroundings. So that's kind of how I applied for the position and, let them know as far as what my leadership skills looked like and what I had done previously, how it could apply to their position. And sure enough, I got the job, which I was surprised by, but it all worked out.
Awesome. All right. Well, it's great to hear the different pathways that everyone took to get to where they are today. I would love to know, do you see this as the final step in your career journey? And how do each of you measure professional success? What are your long-term goals in your current position? And we will start with Casandra.
For myself, I don't see this as my final step in my career. I really would like to move into the more strategic side of recruitment, really working to make sure that, the people, the workforce planning that we're putting together is really hitting those goals that we have for the organization and what vision we see ourselves in the next, 5 to 10 years. So I'm hoping to really step into that space and stretch more than I have in my past years. I feel like I'm ready for that challenge. I'd also like to obtain additional certification just to become a little bit more of an expertise. For me, that would be getting the HRCI certification, specifically, hopefully the strategic leader one. And then in addition to that, for myself, the way that I measure my success in a position is I really look at what's my happiness. Do I feel fulfilled by the work that I'm doing? Do I get to satisfy, that craving for creativity? And then also, do I feel like my contributions are having a larger impact that's positive on the group? So really, if I feel like some of those values around me are being met, that's how I know I'm in the right space.
That's awesome. I love that you bring up creativity. Can you talk a little bit more? I don't think everyone would associate recruitment with creativity, but I think it can happen in every job, and it's great that you found that outlet. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So with our organization, Boulder Medical Center, we've been around for a long time. We've been in practice since 1949, for example. So there are things that we are very good at, and we stay with that. However, times have changed. Trying to find creative ways to pull in talent, say specifically for medical assistants. So we had to really tap into what kind of candidates were applying for our jobs, which ended up being a lot of college graduates, people who were wanting to go get some years of experience before they became physicians. So we recognized that, and we created I guess you could say, a pathway for those students, graduates, to enter into Boulder Medical Center, get to work along professionals like Lauren Kunz, who were RNs, have experience in the clinic, train with them, and then work alongside the doctors before they were able to move into their professional careers and education as a MD. So that was one space where we got to be really creative. We saw a need and then pulled it into the organization as a pathway.
Courtney.
Yeah, so I hope this is not the final chapter in my career and my journey. As a kid, I always aspired to be the CEO of Nike. I love sports. I love their shoes. I love their leadership. And now I envision myself more as a COO or CEO, knowing how much I enjoy operations. I enjoy the leadership within the healthcare field. My professional goals are always and continuously evolving. So I aim to keep learning and growing, which will lead me down new paths. So when it comes to setting goals, I do remember setting very personal goals and milestones, even as a kid. I wanted to achieve a 6-figure salary by the time I turned 30. Another goal was obtaining my master's degree. My current goal is to transition into operations and eventually attain a VP position. So I'm sure once those are achieved that I'll have 3 more goals added to my list. But But I do believe that professional measure is not always and only by performance indicators set by your company. It's also definitely internal goals that you have for yourself, and that's what keeps you growing.
Awesome. I love that you talk about your own personal goals and how important those are. I will pass it over to Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think that I don't necessarily see this as the final step in my career, but if this is what I continue to do forever, I think I would be really happy. I absolutely love what I get to do. But I also am very open to discovering what new things are interesting to me, what helps me grow. And I think that's a big part of making sure that I feel successful. So the way I measure success is not so much a measurement, but it is more of a feeling. And it's a feeling of personal satisfaction, a feeling like what I'm doing is in tune with my values. And one of my main values that is really important to me in many ways is caring for other people and helping others. I feel like I get a lot of personal satisfaction out of that particular interest. So finding ways to do that has been it's an interesting and creative process as a nurse. There's very obvious ways to do that as a nurse, like care for patients and take care of them when they're sick. And then in this new role in education, I've been able to help care for the caregivers and provide support to those people who are going to be going out and caring for our loved ones. So that I would say is absolutely a long-term goal of mine. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to some questions about the healthcare industry more broadly. Can you identify some of those hard to fill positions in your industry? And what are some key skills that those positions require? Let's start with Courtney.
Sure. So in behavioral health, we face challenges in filling certain positions, particularly entry-level roles, such as a behavioral health tech. So those roles provide a vital exposure to the patient care without requiring an advanced degree. Many young adults start here because you just need 1 year of human resources background position to qualify. So we see a lot of young adults that try this position out, and it helps them identify whether or not they want to be a therapist, a psychologist, a pediatrician, a psychiatrist, or pivot into like a business development or admin role. But there's a lot of things that you learn about yourself, especially working in a position where you have so much responsibility and care over someone else's journey through recovery. Another challenging role I will say that's hard to fill is therapists. Clearly that position does require a master's degree, but also a significant amount of emotional resilience and dedication. So at Embark, we prioritize therapists' well-being by managing their caseloads to prevent burnout, recognizing that it's an extremely demanding nature, the line of work that they're in. But that being said, it's hard to find providers who enjoy the more acute cases and the taxing workload. So those two are kind of my top for behavioral health.
Awesome. All right, we'll move it over to Casandra.
So at Boulder Medical Center, having focused in solely outpatient care, I would say our top two hard positions to fill are medical assistants and medical receptionists. Medical assistants are hard because we're looking for those folks who are the career MAs. And right now, post-COVID, there has been a shortage of interest of folks of wanting to go on to be medical assistants. So that's where we had to be creative and find our own candidate pool, which was those college students. And then for the medical receptionist, you're really tapping into people who want to be, they want to be the frontline support. They want to be the face of a doctor's office. They're usually your caring, supportive, good administrative skill set type folks. And sometimes they don't necessarily have a clear trajectory unless that individual carves it out themselves. By that, I mean, it's not medical receptionist, administration, and then slowly work your way into like a leadership role. It can be a great opportunity for someone who's maybe is having more of a focus on family life and they're just looking for something 8 to 5. So it's kind of different trajectory, but it can definitely be a successful career. I would say that for both of those positions, from my purview, what is a skill set that'll help them in both roles would be adaptability and flexibility. Being in patient care, you have exposure to a lot of different people, a lot of people with different needs. They come into the office because they're ill or they're sick. So you just need to be flexible and adaptable. If the clinic has to close because things are happening in the world like the pandemic, you need to be able to adapt to change, and may have to do some things remotely. Or somebody in the office gets sick, like a physician, they close the clinic for some reason. Not necessarily what happens, but I'm just trying to drive home that point of being flexible.
All right, Lauren.
All right. So I think I totally agree with what Kaz said. Since we work at the same company, I definitely agree with those positions. I would like to elaborate on the clinical position, those medical assistants. So as Kaz mentioned, we have two main categories of medical assisting. We have the medical assistants who are there to continue working as a medical assistant. They want to grow their career within that scope of practice. And then we also have the medical assistants who are kind of the temporary medical assistants who are there to learn. They want to learn that role to the extent that it helps them continue to broaden their perspectives into different scopes of practice through additional school. So that I think both of those roles can be challenging to fill. But I think that the career MAs who really want to continue to grow within that scope of practice have been challenging to find, especially post-COVID. I'm hoping that's bouncing back because I think it's a wonderful place to work and it's a wonderful kind of scope to get to see so many different things in. But COVID certainly did have an impact. And I think for skills that it takes to be successful in this particular role, I would say time management and prioritization are huge. When you're running a clinic with the doctor, you are moving from room to room, you're rooming patients, you're putting in orders, you're taking phone calls. If something urgent happens and a patient needs immediate medical attention, we need to completely reroute our plans and day to attend to that. And then you have to be able to bounce back into what you're doing. So both of those skills are really helpful in that setting.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad we brought up adaptability, time management. I think one thing we hear from employers often is that in addition to the technical skills, there's also a need for soft skills like problem solving, professional writing, teamwork, leadership, and a professional attitude. So I'm wondering, how important are soft skills in your industry, and do you have any tips on how to better develop these types of skills? We'll go ahead and go back to Lauren.
Awesome. So I think it speaks a lot that the skills I identified that I think all of us kind of hit on were soft skills. And I think that it just goes to show that in any particular role, no matter how like hands-on skill-based you need to learn versus soft skills are going to be important no matter what you're doing. So I think it's super important. As far as some of the more clinical hands-on skills, I mean, we can teach you how to do that. You can practice. We have lots of great methods in training you. If you're looking for that education and experience, it's a matter of practice and your ability to kind of study and learn those things. But beyond that, those soft skills are absolutely important.
Awesome. I love that on the job training aspect that you bring up. All right, we will go to Casandra.
I think that Lauren did a great job answering that question. I think that really having those soft skills help you be able to problem solve on your own, help you understand how to work through a situation or through a team. So it's really important that you have those skills to lean on. And I think people will recognize it too if you're able to really bring those soft skills forward, if you're a good communicator, if you're able to collaborate well with your other team members. People will reach out to you and will want to be on your team or want to collaborate on different items, projects in the business arena. As far as development, that's a tricky question. I'm trying to think of exactly how do you teach someone how to be better at their soft skills. And I mean, other than, of course, taking some kind of business class, which again, I think that probably would be a little bit more technical on teaching you something, but I would have to say that it would be self-awareness. So reflection, if something comes up and you didn't handle it as well as you thought you did, just being aware of that. If you're in the workplace and there's somebody that you look up to and you see them as a mentor or someone who has offered to be a mentor, I think those are really great ways to build those relationships, get some feedback, or even say, I have this scenario that popped up in the office and I really don't know how to handle it. Can you help me? It could just be as simple as that.
Awesome, thank you. And we will go to Courtney to tell us a little bit about soft skills in behavioral health.
Yeah, I think, like I said, we all kind of mentioned it in our industry. Soft skills are very vital. Healthcare, particularly behavioral health, requires professionals who lead with empathy, who communicate effectively, and can intuitively read the emotional climate of the room. I've witnessed both ends of the spectrum where interactions feel mechanical versus those that build genuine rapport. And I think the latter is crucial, especially when working with such vulnerable populations. I think the best way to develop these skills is through exposure. Like I said, we've all experienced both ends. So people who they run over you, they don't listen, they don't have good bedside manner, they're filling out a chart, they're checking a box that they think you belong in, versus how you feel when somebody sits, they have a conversation with you, they look you in the eyes, they have different body language, they pick up on your energy and your emotional tone. There's a very noticeable difference. So when it comes to dealing with people in general, regardless of whether it's in healthcare or not, soft skills can be extremely valuable, and being exposed to certain skills can also help you start to refine your own.
Awesome. I love the leading with empathy aspect, and I think you're right. That does apply to not just the healthcare industry, but all professional roles in general. All right. So I'd love to explore each of your organizations a little bit more in depth. And we will start with Courtney because I know that Lauren and Casandra work at Boulder Medical Center. Can you speak a little bit to the company culture at your organization?
Embark in particular, yes. I've never worked for an organization like Embark that truly lives through their mission statements and their values. We hear the word culture a lot nowadays, and yet not often do we see a company that truly achieves their own goal of living through their culture. But Embark has a mission statement and really what they live by as far as creating relationship, leading with empathy, fostering growth, and reducing adolescent and young adult suicide by 2028. And they're actually achieving this because they're living and they're working through those values. So, for example, everyone they hire goes through this really fun, stringent interview process because they want to find the right people who are passionate about why they do what they do and do they love what they do. And people who appreciate their community and they want to give back, they want to be a resource, they want to learn, they want to contribute to something speaks volumes internally and externally. And those are always the candidates that we're looking for. So when Embark does find people that align with their culture and their mission, they take care of them. They do everything in their power to make sure that they're not overworked. Their clinical staff is very valuable to them. So what do they need to do to keep them happy? Because we work in high levels of care, long-term residential, therapeutic boarding schools, residential programs, crisis and stabilization centers, that means that we take care of really acute patients. So we recognize that there are limited options for receiving quality care. So we're definitely committed to distinguishing ourselves as a premier organization for these kids and young adults to recover. To me, that is a culture I'd be willing to stake my reputation on. And I hope Embark influences others in the field to take on and prioritize similar values and a similar culture.
Awesome, thank you. And I will move it over to Lauren to talk a little bit about company culture at Boulder Medical Center.
Awesome. I love that question. It's actually a question I asked in my interview with Boulder Medical Center when I was interviewing for the job. And I might have heard a giggle from Kaz because she's the one who interviewed me. So thank you, Kaz. But BMC is a very interesting kind of like small business feel, even though it has grown a lot and we now have a lot of providers we work with. So you kind of have that sort of neighborly vibe where you get to know a little bit of everybody, but it is large enough now that I think that we have a larger structure amongst ourselves. The other piece of culture I think is really cool is our diversity, equality efforts to try to engage with that aspect. So we have like a diversity committee that plans really fun activities for us to get to know each other and learn more about our backgrounds, which I think is really cool. And I'd say we're very patient and people focused. You know, we want to, like, we care about each other. We're a close knit group, and we care really deeply about our patients. With our providers being the owners of the business, they make decisions for our business and they align very closely with what they think is best for patients and each other.
Yeah, I'll touch a little bit more. So at Boulder Medical Center, one of the things that I really love, and Lauren mentioned this, is that our owners or our doctors are the owners of the organization. So they really have their hands in the pot as far as patient care and making sure that they have a say in how things are going to be operating within the business. On the flip side of that, internally, you know, me being the HR person, our employees are our, I guess you could say, patients. And from that perspective, it's really nice to know that the people who are also making decisions about the company also care about their employees. There are times where maybe there isn't a rule necessarily set in place for certain scenarios that might happen in an individual employee's life. For instance, myself, I had a health condition come up in the past 12 months, and the company really pulled together for me to create work-life balance that would allow me to continue to work on my career, be an HR professional in the healthcare setting, but also be at home and taking care of my family. So without going into too much detail, just hitting home that it really does have that family, neighborly feeling that Lauren was able to touch on.
Cool. I love that. All right. So we have 2 questions left, and these will really focus on what folks should know before getting started in the healthcare industry. So what are the misconceptions that you held before entering the industry that folks thinking about going into the same field should be aware of? Lauren?
So this question is great too. I had some misconceptions before getting really into nursing school and starting my nursing career. I grew up with certain medical shows that were very popular at the time, and they featured doctors being the ones who kind of take the patient's blood pressure and they sit with them for hours having these great conversations. So my misconception was that our doctors had time to do these things. And as I learned more about the healthcare industry, I realized the doctor's perspective is going to be actually a lot broader. They're going to have a lot more patients to see. They have a lot less time at one time to sit with people because they have whole floors of patients in a hospital, for example, to be caring for. So in that specific circumstance, it was actually the nurse who would be taking the blood pressure and sitting with that patient. So that's what kind of guided my decision making into going into nursing school. And so that's for on the acute care side. And then on the outpatient care side, I would say my perspective was that outpatient care office clinic was going to be maybe a little bit more relaxed and kind of boring. Heck no, it is not boring. It is not super relaxed. You are busy. You have just as much to be paying attention to in a day. It's just a very different setting.
Yeah, actually kind of funny, was similar with Lauren, but growing up, I thought that there was just a limited scope. Like you had to be a nurse, you had to be a PA, an MD, a DO, or you were in the administrative wing and you were kind of one of the number crunchers. So I never expected that there would be so many layers in between, so many different facets and opportunities to learn about what you like, what kind of patient you like dealing with. You know, patient population go from 0 to 100 plus. what part about those patients do you truly enjoy working with? Is it cardiology? Are you curious about the neuroscience with the brain? Do you like the behavioral stuff because it's unique and it's continuously growing and there's a lot of educational focus around those diagnoses? Is it something like physical therapy or occupational therapy? Again, I was very naive going into this, and what the healthcare landscape actually looked like. For a long time, because I didn't have a clinical degree, I didn't think that it was the field for me. So I never really dove into what the opportunities looked like.
That's great. Thank you. I really didn't know how many positions were available in the healthcare industry until I started exploring for this panel. So it's great to hear you say that.
Yeah, so I'm kind of echoing what Chelsea said for myself. I went into it naively. I didn't expect the business administrative roles necessarily. I never really thought of them in healthcare. I always thought you had to be a nurse and you had to like science and that you had to have a science degree, which I do not. I'm good with people. I like to talk, so put me in front of that space and I can do great. But give me a needle and try to poke somebody's skin, it's not going to happen. So that was a misconception myself that I had. And when I got that opportunity to take that HR job, I really went into it blindly. So I would say that when you think that there's not something available, an opportunity, continue to figure out what your niche is, see what you like. And I would almost venture to say in any industry, you can create that kind of position, that role. It's just a matter of tapping into what are you good at.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. The last question before we move into the Q&A portion are, what are some of the best resources for job seekers wanting to learn more about working in healthcare? And what resource do you wish you had access to during your education or job search that you didn't? So we'll start with Courtney.
Yeah. So what are some of the best resources for job seekers? Like I think I mentioned before, networking. So talking to somebody that you're sitting next to in a restaurant, getting to know the people around you, seeing what they do, asking questions, learning about them. That's one way, which again, inevitably we call networking. LinkedIn has become an essential platform just for discovering job opportunities and connecting with professionals. So I highly recommend being a part of that community, even if it's just to explore job opportunities that are available local to you. And then keeping in mind that leveraging relationships is key. So not hesitating to reach out to friends, family, or acquaintances who may have insights or connections in the industry that you're curious about. I would say I get resumes often from colleagues in the field who have a friend, who has a sister, who has a mom, who has a son, who's curious about getting into the industry. And I'm always, always happy to take a call, sit down, chat, learn more about their goals, and then point them in the right direction. I would have loved to have had someone like that when I was graduating college. Like I said, instead I went a different trajectory, and that was based on a discount for jeans. But if you do have someone in your life and you know that even some friends, parents, sisters, aunt, uncle have a cool or unique job, start asking questions, see what you can find out. Maybe it aligns with your morals, your goals, your values, and hopefully eventually your passions.
That's a great answer. I feel like networking can be kind of a scary word, but when you just talk about it in terms of having a conversation about what you're curious about, kind of frames it differently. All right, we'll move to Lauren.
I would say that some of the best resources might actually be more like experiences or opportunities in healthcare. So, for example, volunteering or shadowing, that was something that I was not so aware of until I was maybe almost a little too late into my education. So, like just volunteering at like a long-term care facility, we see resumes from people who do that, and their volunteer gig is to sit down and like play Connect 4 with somebody living there. So it's a really great opportunity to kind of explore that patient communication and patient care aspect. And it just gets you exposure to different types of settings. Another thing I mentioned, shadowing, that's something where, you know, if you have a friend or a loved one or a family member and you're like, hey, how is your job like? Somebody who works in healthcare, that's a really great networking opportunity, as was mentioned. But also, you could ask to shadow them and just see what their day to day is like. We've even had like patients who are really great patients apply to reception positions and they become a really great receptionist with us. So you don't necessarily have to know someone already. There are ways to meet people, and getting your feet on the ground in different settings is super helpful. You just never know what it feels like until you're there.
Nice. The patient to receptionist pipeline. All right. Move to Casandra.
I like that plug. Patient to receptionist. And I do want to apologize, Courtney. I said Chelsea, but I meant Courtney, so forgive me. One of the areas that I was thinking of was not being afraid to take those entry-level positions. So it might seem like you might feel like you're a little bit above a certain position. That could be a personal judgment that somebody has or a bias, but I would say don't be afraid of taking those entry-level positions because they can be a great way of just getting your foot in the door, getting people around, letting people around you in the business get to know you, and moving into a different position as you go through. I'd also say looking at your local workforce centers, there's a lot of different opportunities like internships, apprenticeships that are available. And if someone feels like they need a little bit more education to feel confident in going into healthcare, they might think that having a bachelor's degree is the one way to do it. But I would also recommend considering community colleges because they have a lot of really great programs and certifications that cost less money and less commitment in time if someone is wanting to start in an entry place and not necessarily have the time or the funds to commit to a full-fledged degree at that point in time.
Awesome. That's a great answer. And I love highlighting those entry-level positions as kind of the gateway to opening yourself up to the healthcare industry. And I love that you plugged the local workforce center because before we get into Q&A, start submitting your questions now. But I would like to pass it over to Dara from Workforce Boulder County, our local workforce center. And she's going to tell you a little bit about some of the services that they offer for young adult job seekers.
Thank you, Olivia, and thank you all for being here. Like Olivia mentioned, I'm Dara. I'm with the Workforce Boulder County. I am the Work-Based Learning Program Coordinator, and I just wanted to share some of the services that we offer. So we have a program specific to young adults that are within 16 to 24 years old. And really what we do is work alongside you with a career support specialist to help you develop a career path and really help you find and develop your career goals. So we do have, like Casandra mentioned, we partner with them pretty frequently. We offer some paid internship opportunities, not just within healthcare, but within other industries as well. We also have some funding available for some short-term certifications. We have a number of amazing workshops that we offer to help you build your resume, focus on interviewing techniques, wide range there's some networking, there's quite a few. So we'll drop a link in the chat with our website. And if you want to find out more information, we also have an interest form on there. So you're welcome to fill that out and we will connect with you. We have 2 locations, one in Boulder and one in Longmont. And then we also have a virtual call center that you're welcome to call Monday through Friday. So we are here to help support young adults find their career path and really develop their skills.
I'm looking in the Q&A and there are no questions, which hopefully means that I did my job correctly and not that nobody has any questions. But that is the end of the session of the Pathways to Success Workforce webinar series, a healthcare focused panel. So thank you so much to our panelists for providing their insight and knowledge into careers in the healthcare industry. And thank you to our attendees for participating in this learning opportunity. So if you want to learn more or you need extra support in your own career journey, definitely visit Workforce Boulder County's website and explore some of those resources that Dara just mentioned. And join us next month for our Advanced Manufacturing and Life Sciences Focus panel. So I will end the meeting and thank you all for coming and have a great rest of your day.